Hello everyone! Books can be expensive, especially if someone reads a lot. Now, I like to think that I read a fair amount of books, and I wish I would actually read more because sometimes will be honest, I tend to choose sitting on the couch watching Marvel anime or Netflix all the time. Now, there are many different ways to reduce the cost of this hobby, and I'm going to go over a few of my favorites. Now, not all of these are going to work for you. Take what you can, but I'm going to go through my most favorite to like my least favorite. And these are really just like ideas. Library, a city library that I go to frequently, my state library, and then also another library that just decided like, hey, yeah, you can have a library card because you just want our digital services. And they were totally okay with that, which was great in my opinion. Libraries offer so much more than just books. They offer so many different kinds of services. Now, if the services you're really wanting to look into are book related, they do have digital services available. The Libby app is one I actually have the least amount of experience with, but it's the most popular one that libraries use as online services to offer for their patrons. The only reason I feel relatively confident about talking about it is I used to work in a library, and I used to help people sign up for digital services. So you do need to find out which ones your library uses, and the easiest way to do that is to ask them. You can shoot them an email, you can call them the next time you're in there getting a physical book, because libraries have physical books. You can also ask them for to sign up for their digital services. A lot of them also have it available to go online and sign up. I do know that's available, but most of them have so many. So one that I use is called Cloud Library, and my state library actually uses it. The way this one is set up is there's a certain amount of copies available of like a title. So like I recently have The Hobbit on it. And since I have that title checked out, somebody else that would want it would have to be put on hold for it. Very similar to like an actual physical library. I think it's because the libraries have to purchase so many, the word has escaped me, but really to purchase so many copies of that title to provide on there. I know some of them are like free for them, so there's like unlimited copies, but kind of works that way. I mostly use Cloud Library for ebooks and audiobooks. Downside about it is since it is put on hold, there's many times I have waited 7 to 8 months for a book, to where sometimes I've actually just asked them to get a physical copy of it. Because that's another thing your library can do, or I should say most libraries can do, is my library doesn't have the Wheel of Time series. So that's one series I'm wanting to read this year. So I actually asked them, it's like, hey, can you get this book for me? And they're like, yeah, we totally can. And I was actually able to ask them if they would mind seeing if we can have it for an extended period of time, because it's a larger book and I'm probably not going to get it read in the time that usually is allowed, which is like a month and a half. So I really want to try to get it for a couple months. Didn't checkouts for the whole month, but they're immediately available. So like I just got The Wheel of Time as an audiobook on there. It's a 36-hour audiobook. I want to physically read it and also listen to it. And that's really cool that I can do that, and I'm actually like not spending anything on it. But I only get 7 checkouts. They do have it set up to where there's ebooks, audiobooks, TVs, video series. I think there's like a couple of like the master classes on it. So this one has a lot more than just the ebooks and audiobooks. I think there's even like magazines on it, which is wild. They also have it to where like there's bonus checkouts to where they don't affect the 7 checkouts that I get. So like the seasonal stuff, they had like a Hallmark deal to where it's like you had a Hallmark bundle, you like used 1 checkout and you got like 12 or 24 Hallmark movies for 7 days or something like that. It was really kind of cool. Like I like the way they do. Libby is the one that is the most popular that I see as a recommended item, but it is the one that I don't have. There is a library in my area that does use it. They're pretty satisfied with it, but I don't have a lot of experience about how it works or how it differentiates from this one. If your library uses it and like there's some really cool things about it that you love, please let me know. And what's the great thing about using the digital library services, there are no late fees or having to worry about returning items, because as soon as the item is due, it is out of your library. It is like your little library checkout thing, it's out of there. The day of that it is meant to be back, you don't have to worry about it. There are no late fees. There's no keeping track of like physical items, which is really nice. And like, again, you don't have to worry about returning it on time. But the downside of that is you're probably not going to be able to renew it. Since like on the cloud library I use, since I have to share with other people, and if there's a hold on it, it goes to that person even if I'm not finished with it. So that is a downside. So you do want to use and read and utilize them, otherwise it's going to go bye-bye. Alright, so if you really enjoy physical books, you can get like physical books from the library, which is I think what most people assume the library is still used for. If your library doesn't have a copy of a book, you can actually have them ask another library and see if they can loan it. I don't buy too terribly many books just because for a really long time I didn't have the space for it. Books are bulky, and if you don't have a bookshelf or two, it can get kind of frustrating to figure out how to store them. So that's also another really great suggestion, is if you have minimal room or you only really want to buy the books that you loved, or you're like, I only think I'm going to buy this book once, or like read it once, I'm only going to read this book once, using your library is great for that because you get to give it back to them. It's great. Anyways, for this year, for myself, I really want to buy and support more indie authors, self-published authors. Obviously, if I really enjoy the author, I'm probably just going to purchase that book, because if I enjoy the world, like Sarah J. Maas, I might just accumulate all of those, much to my husband's dismay. I mean, right now, I'm really enjoying the Wheel of Time series. That's a 14-book series, and it's already done, so I can just, like, crush it and get that through. Anyways, if you do decide you want to buy things, there are so many different ways to use. Websites are great. This one seems like a no-brainer, is buying used books if you know you like the book or you want to build up your personal library. Buying used is a great option. Websites like Thrift Books are really great. Better World Books is a really popular one, and this is really good if you want to buy older books. Also, physical used bookstores. If your town or city has a Barnes & Noble in it, more likely there is a used bookstore there. I actually have a used bookstore that also has an online book option. I have a bookstore I use, a used bookstore I use that also has an online presence, and so I'm able to check and see if they have a book and purchase books on there as well, which is really nice. And then some libraries also have a Friends of the Library bookstore available on the premise, just because libraries can only have so many books because they are still at a capacity. They're going to take some unpopular books or books that haven't been checked out in a long time or books that were donated and sell them to also help support themselves. So check out and see if your library has a physical option. If you do decide to buy a new book, which totally fine, buying it directly from the author is always a really good option. I know that on TikTok there's a lot of people that have options to buy it through them, and they get a little bit more kickback on that. Through the author's website is a really good one. And if you do decide to go through and buy just something, check out to see if you have any local bookstores first before you go to the chains. If you don't, then just do whatever works for you, because you are the person who's going to be using your funds to buy books, so you have to do what works for you. Which is just a really interesting way I just said all of that. And my most favorite idea about getting books or reading more books is to trade books with a friend. If you have a friend in real life that also reads, you can probably trade them books. You can either just do swapsies, like a direct trade of like, oh, I don't really read this book, do you want to read this book? And you just trade back and forth, just kind of like a mini library, or even just splitting it. But if they do want it back, make sure you give it to them and you don't accidentally lose it like I have and had to buy them the book again, and you feel awful because that book that you lost had memories associated with them on a vacation, which is hilarious because they actually recently gave me another book. And if you guys have more ideas on how to read for cheap and or free, please let me know in the comments and just make sure they're, you know, within reason. All right, have a good one. Bye.